Hi, everyone. Welcome to Interchange, and thank you so very much for joining us. I'm Dan Jones. We have lots of interesting stuff to talk about again this week. President Obama makes his pitch to some of the country's Latino leaders in Florida today, just a day after Mitt Romney had his chance. We'll talk about the new report out that shows Milwaukee spends more money on public schools than almost any other big city in America. We'll take a few minutes to discuss the nearly never-ending battle that Waukesha faces trying to buy good, clean water from the city of Milwaukee. And we'll get everybody's thoughts about this new proposal by the University of Wisconsin to offer an online bachelor's degree. All right, let me introduce everybody. We have longtime newspaper columnist Joel McNally. You know Kevin Fischer, former broadcast journalist, political analyst, and oftentimes a fill-in host over on WISN Talk Radio. Denise Callaway, community affairs and public relations professional. And Gerard Randall, education consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about, President Obama and Mitt Romney both made face-to-face pitches this week to a large group of Latino political leaders gathered for a convention in Florida. They, of course, like Obama's recent order to stop deporting many young undocumented immigrants. But you have to wonder, Kevin, would they support Romney if he comes out with naming Florida senator and son of immigrant Marco Rubio as his running mate? Would all of a sudden they be behind Romney?
Well, that would have been a brilliant strategy on the part of Mitt Romney. One columnist this week said, and I think rightfully so, that if Romney, who is white bread with mayonnaise, would choose someone like this, out of the blue, suddenly now you have an energetic, charismatic, enthusiastic person on the ticket, and tomorrow's headlines are not Obama embraced by Hispanics, but wow, the first Latino vice presidential nominee ever in the history of America, and it totally obliterates Obama's appearance at this very important conference.
Which didn't happen, of course.
But it may, and if it would, he'd get a standing ovation and he would be warmly embraced and so forth. Republicans, even though recent surveys have shown that Obama's support among Hispanics is waning a bit, Republicans are woefully behind when it comes to courting the Hispanic vote. And that's understandable. Shame on Republicans. You can't go courting Hispanics once every 4 years. You got to pay attention to them more often. And you have to have the right message. I'm not sure if Mitt Romney has it yet for Hispanics or ever will. You can't, as one Romney supporter at the conference said, only talk about immigration, because that's insulting. Hispanics are about more than just one issue. And it's not the mantra of less taxes, less regulation, less government. You can talk about that, but that doesn't fly with a lot of Hispanic voters. What would fly, I think, is a more personalized, customized message to conservative family values, which are very important to Hispanics.
But Denise, in 2008, a great many African Americans said they voted for Obama because he was an African American. Would people vote for Romney because his running mate was a Latino?
Well, the interesting thing about Marco Rubio is that he is Cuban American. And the issues that Cuban Americans face and the political stances that they have traditionally taken, very, very different from those of the majority of Latinos who are not of Cuban descent. So while it might be nice for them to see him there, I don't think that he will automatically bring a lot of Latino voters if, in fact, and that's a big if, he is selected by Romney to be his VP. And Kevin, I will say that Republicans have been paying a lot of attention, particularly in the primary, to Latinos. It was just the wrong kind of attention. Mitt Romney's problem is he can't court the Latino vote in the general election because of what he said during the primary. You can't say that you would not support the DREAM Act in the primary and somehow expect that in the general election people aren't going to pay any attention to what you said.
So is Romney just kind of sidestepping the issue by not?
He's not sidestepping the issue. He's not saying anything about the issue. I mean, his problem is, in order to say what he needs to say to really court Latino voters, He alienates the conservatives that he needs to be on his side and to vote for him in this election.
And it would just be another example of Romney being on both sides of an issue. One moment saying he's for something, and the other minute he's saying for the opposite. Denise is absolutely right. I mean, the whole message of the Republican Party, not just Romney saying he would veto the DREAM Act, but the whole message of the Republican Party has been to demonize Latinos, to demonize immigration, to talk about them being criminals. The interesting, I'm always amazed. I'm amazed, even though Marco Rubio is an extremely conservative Latino, who I can't agree with much of anything he stands for. The one thing he did say in a book that he's just published is that if he were in Mexico and couldn't feed his family, that he would enter to this country illegally in order to do that. And that is just the opposite of the message that Republicans have been driving home, trying to use illegal immigration as an inflammatory issue to make you hate Latinos and to make you suspect them of stealing your jobs. And all the hate that the Republican Party uses against black people and brown people has, in fact, as you say, African Americans are going to be voting for the Democratic Party for a long, long time because of them using hatred. And Latinos are on the same
Stop
track.
using the H word.
You're a Republican. Do you hate black people and Latinos?
Yeah.
I don't hate myself, that's for certain. And I don't know that the party, at least not in my experience, has been a hateful party either. It doesn't make sense. This is the party of Lincoln. And,
yes.
And up through the 1960s, African Americans voted Republican.
Yes.
In the majority.
And what happened then?
And
when Republicans started opposing civil rights.
No, Republicans never opposed civil rights. Joel, you've been wrong on that. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be the one that will ever correct you on it because you don't believe it. But the fact is, Republicans were responsible for the Civil Rights Acts being passed by the Congress under the leadership of President Johnson. And so as we moved into the 70s and the failed strategy that Richard Nixon had to court Southern voters and the Republican Party switched, it was the Southern strategy. But that's not the reason that African-American voters switched. African-American voters switched because the Civil Rights Acts under Lyndon Johnson's leadership became the popular rallying point for them to switch to the Democratic Party.
And opposition to civil rights became the rallying point for white Republicans.
All right, next topic. The headline in the paper this morning was Milwaukee Public Schools per pupil spending is the 4th highest among the 50 biggest school districts in America. This is straight from the Census Bureau, but based on 3-year-old data. It said MPS spends more than $14,000 per year per kid. If this is the case, why does a district complain year after year that it doesn't have enough money to do the job that it says it has to do? Denise.
Well, what an obvious question for me. It's not a complaint that we don't have enough money. It's not that simple. The complaint is that we need to figure out ways in which we can take a look at having the tools that we need to be able to educate kids. Money's part of it. Flexibility is part of it as well. But the reason we take a look at this number and why this number is so high is that we have a higher concentration of poverty than many of those urban districts. Right now, today, almost 84% of all children who attend Milwaukee Public Schools are kids who are living in poverty. With that come some particular needs that we don't see in other communities. So that's a factor. We also have 20% of our kids who require special education needs. That ranges from everything from a child who needs to have some kind of support around speech therapy to the most medically fragile children who we work to educate. So those are two things that push your cost up. The other thing that pushes your cost up for us, and it's also true for other districts around the state, but we see it because to a greater extent because we're larger, are those legacy costs that we're dealing with benefits for retirees. Clearly, that's something that we're seeing. So this is 2 years old. So what's happened in 2 years that would change this figure? One of the major things that's happened since Dr. Thornton came in July 2010 has really been to push to make some changes to get those benefit costs under control, which tend to really drive a lot of what's happening. So, for example, already we've been able to shave over $184 million off those benefit costs. Not an easy thing to do, but it's what we need to do, or we're going to get money back into the classroom. We absolutely, positively have to be able to do that and to be more prudent stewards of the dollars that we have. We anticipate, with changes that have been made, that between 2010 and 2017, we'll shave almost $400 million. So we're trying to do our very best to take control of our district, knowing that we face challenges that are unique. Now, we may have been one of the largest spending districts in the country, but it's interesting to know that we were not the school district in Wisconsin that spent the most money per pupil. You know, we have 2 school districts in the North Shore that spent more money per pupil, including, excuse me, Nicolay, which spent almost over $17,000.
But then wouldn't critics argue, yeah, that might be the case, but the results on those North Shore districts are a lot better than MPS?
No, but you have to look at whether or not the money that is being spent, as Denise had pointed out, does the money that on a per pupil basis that's being spent, is that driven into the classroom? And in MPS, the money had been spent primarily on personnel. I mean, your biggest cost are the cost of your teachers and to some degree your administrators, but teachers. And when you're looking at the cost of the benefit packages alone, including some of those benefit packages that have now been terminated, you have to look at that cost not going directly to the benefit of the student. That has changed, I think, in the last 2 years. That equation is what's changing, because now you're looking at some of those dollars that had been available to go into the classroom to improve things like the availability of better computers and software packages for instruction, better textbooks. You even get better teachers now because we're able to have professional development that targets those teachers in specific areas where there's great need. Has been pointed out, special education, for example. We've had a need for certified special education teachers. And we had gone through a period where a good chunk of those teachers did not have the necessary licenses in order to teach in those classrooms. Well, now, through cooperation with the schools of education and in particular with the additional professional development activity that has been available to them, those teachers are now more likely to be certified in special ed, in math, than not.
Joel, you've always argued that they should put even more money into MPS.
Yeah, I sure have. Let me just add to what both these two folks just said about the poverty costs and special ed, because this is related. The one thing that neither of them did mention was the voucher program, which in Wisconsin is very different from any place else in the country. And what that does is remove from the public schools poor children. It's aimed at poverty, allegedly. Poor children, but it removes the poor children who are the easiest to educate. The ones whose parents are most engaged, who are trying to find the best possible school for them. The ones who don't have special education needs. If they have special education needs, the voucher schools aren't even going to serve them. They take out the easy to serve poor kids and leave the hardest to educate and the hardest to deal with. Let me add one more thing, and that is I don't want Wisconsin schools or Milwaukee public schools to have low cost. I don't want them to have the lowest cost per pupil in the country. We know the kinds of states that do that. And while the governor of this state right now is cutting $1 billion out of education, and he's trying to bring us down as low as he possibly can in what we spend on education, I want children in Milwaukee to get a better education.
And I would like to see some bang for that buck. These numbers prove that spending a lot doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get performance.
You didn't
Unless
hear
you-
anything
unless
that
you
was
live in
said.
Nicolay.
Next
Didn't
topic.
hear anything.
Unless you live in
I listened
Nicolay.
to all the 10 minutes, and I got my 10 seconds in.
Next topic. For years, Waukesha has been trying to buy nice, clean drinking water from Milwaukee because much of the well water that Waukesha uses is contaminated with radium. The two sides just can't seem to reach any sort of agreement. Is it because Milwaukee doesn't want to give up one very big positive asset it has, clean water, especially when that might encourage people to move out of the city, Kevin, to the western suburbs? Is that what they're...
I think there's some reluctance to help out suburban neighbors. It could be, too, that maybe the price tag is too high. There's also some discussion about whether Milwaukee's water should go beyond the city of Waukesha to some suburban areas around the city of Waukesha. I just think it's very unfair that you have a situation down in Chicago, which through a very sweetheart deal many, many years ago, worked out a situation where every day they divert millions and millions of gallons of Lake Michigan water. So northeastern Illinois residents get Lake Michigan water, and yet here in Wisconsin, we're dickering back and forth about whether or not the city of Milwaukee should help out the city of Waukesha. I think they should. It's a public health matter, and whatever happened to regional cooperation, the two sides need to get together and work this out. They really do.
You know, Denise, we've heard so much in the last year or two about M7 and regional cooperation and everything. It doesn't seem to be working on this topic.
Well, it's not working for a rather simple reason. The mayor said that he's more than happy to discuss and have negotiations with the city of Waukesha. What the city of Waukesha did was to add some additional suburban communities into the mix, into its request, including suburban communities that haven't even gone through the process yet of determining that they want to have Lake Michigan water. So we could rectify this simply. We could move forward in a much quicker way for the city of Waukesha to be able to have access to Lake Michigan water if it would only remove those other communities that haven't even gone through the process of determining that they need it yet. And the city of Waukesha said it doesn't want to do that. So my question is, how badly does the city of Waukesha want that water if it's not willing to make this compromise, which would only make sure that those cities that have actually gone through the process and said yes, they want Lake Michigan water are going to get it.
The city of Waukesha wants the water badly. They need it because they have a radium problem. And I really seriously don't think that because the city of Pewaukee is in the equation, that's just a smokescreen to not follow through.
There's a much bigger issue here, though.
Take it out.
We're talking about negotiation of something that Milwaukee has that Waukesha wants. Well, as a matter of fact, Waukesha has some things that Milwaukee wants. Milwaukee wants jobs for people in their community. They want transportation for people in Milwaukee to get out to those jobs, which is where jobs are being created.
That's the gun to the head.
And they want housing. Okay, let's negotiate then. That's what negotiation is. Negotiation isn't just, we're going to take your water because we need it.
And we say, okay.
You have to negotiate on those issues, and Waukesha has never been willing to negotiate those issues, and in fact have trashed good transit plans, because they somehow don't want to be connected to Milwaukee except to take our water.
So this is we're going to get back at you.
No, not at all. We want to negotiate.
We're not going to sell you water because of these issues.
All right, next topic. The University of Wisconsin and Governor Walker announced this week that UW will start offering online courses so that it will be much easier and probably much cheaper for adults to complete a college degree. But they don't know which classes yet, or exactly how much it's going to cost, or exactly when it's going to start. Do you think this is a sincere effort, or is it just a PR move that comes only a few days after they jacked the tuition for the 6th year in a row?
This is really kind of goofy because I'll be teaching a course this fall. And up until Wednesday, the course is going to be online.
I bet Italian food and culture.
No, I wish. But it will be something that I know something about. And for me to teach the course online, I would have had to have really ramped up my game a lot to reach out to students to help them understand the course content. The reality is, though, that young people who are going through the college experience today are more likely to have all kinds of gadgets that allow them to get course content, to communicate with their teachers, to communicate with their peers in the class, than anything that any of us ever experienced. And so this makes sense if the planning to deliver these courses has been carefully considered. I will say this, 10 years ago, maybe slightly more, the UW launched an online course effort, and it was geared towards graduate school and those in business, and it failed miserably because the planning simply wasn't there, and all of the assumptions that they were making were not assumptions that held up. So if they're launching this effort with the same type of planning and with some of the same people that they had launched this last effort with, this is not going to succeed either, and they will find themselves in deeper competition with the proprietaries that are utilizing online course delivery in far more successful ways than the UW is.
Is this college of the future, or is this
college of today? I think.
Does it cheapen a UW degree?
Oh, absolutely not. If executed effectively and efficiently, I see no downside to this. We've talked on this program many times about affordability and accessibility to the great UW system. This provides affordability and accessibility. Kids can start whenever they want. They can move along at their own pace. And virtual online schools, that concept is very popular in the state of Wisconsin. Depending on the cost, which I think will be affordable, I see win-win.
Let me add, both of you are absolutely right, but that's why the announcement, in a sense, was phony.
Oh, come on, Joel.
Because it exists. You said they started 10 years ago. I've taught at the university for the past 3 years, and there are online courses in every department at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. And every kids, about half the courses they take are online instead of classroom lectures.
Well, it's attractive for teachers and students.
And for them to make this big announcement that this is some revolution going on.
Is to be able to get credit for experience.
Life experience.
Yeah, that was a different part
kind
of it. But online courses are very familiar now, and they're very well organized, and they're very
really great for young people because right now so many of these young people who are getting these online degrees, they're getting them from for-profit universities where the cost for them to do this is astronomical. If the UW can put together a package,
the failure rate is very high.
It's very high, and then these kids have all this money they have to pay back, and they don't have a degree to show for it.
Anyway.
Right.
So if, and this to me is a big if, the UW system can put together a package that's actually going to work for young people, that's really going to be accessible, be as flexible as it needs to be, then I think this has a chance to really do some great things for young people and for older adults, for that matter.
Okay, we move on. For reasons he can't entirely explain, Rick Horowitz has found himself on a ton of right-wing mailing lists lately. It's been a really eye-opening experience for Rick. In fact, he's learning things he could never, ever have imagined. Rick.
Fast and Furious? You bet I heard about Fast and Furious. I heard about it everywhere. At least till I had to get my fillings replaced. Not so much after that. Except on Fox. Thank goodness Fox is still on it. About taking our guns away. I mean, that's what Fast and Furious is all about. Obama trying to take our guns away. See, first he tells Holder to send some of our guns to Mexico, and that means less guns for Americans and more guns in Mexico, and killings too. So then he'll come back and he'll say, we can't have all these killings in Mexico, so give me all your American guns. So then Mexico will have more guns than we do. It's like we're surrendering to Mexico. And I mean, you saw the picture, right, on the internet the other day? Obama bowing down to the president of Mexico. Here, I can put it up on the wall for you. Look for yourself. And I even printed it out, the story. It's from the Washington Times. It says, President Obama did it again. This is one of their columnists. Despite being head of state of the most powerful nation on the planet, he bent over to give a bow to the leader of a lesser country. Its conduct unbecoming a president of the United States. The ostensible leader of the free world should not bow to anyone. Damn right. Now, you know what the lamestream media is going to say about it, right? They'll say, hey, Obama isn't bowing. He's just talking to the fella. He's way taller than this Calderon fella, so he's just leaning over to look him in the eye or whatever. It's what they want you to think. See how they're always making excuses for him? Like it's just an accident Obama's taller than everybody else. You ever hear a human growth hormone? It's obvious. And then he probably even got Mexico to elect a short guy for their president, so he's got a double excuse for leaning over. Or like Putin over in Russia, another short guy, right? I'll bet Obama arranged that one too, so he can keep bowing and nobody will notice. Well, I noticed, oh geez, it's almost time to watch the news. I better go. I've got to get some more aluminum foil for my hat.
Well, thanks, Rick. Thank you, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.